Welcome to Stoic Mindset Daily. In today's video, I'm going to take you through a deeply personal story. One that changed the way I looked at myself, my work, and even love. My name is Emily Carter, and for as long as I can remember, I believed nursing was my true calling. From the moment I first stepped into a hospital as a student, I was drawn to the quiet rhythm of the place, the soft hum of machines, the endless footsteps in the corridors, the subtle scent of antiseptic, and most of all, the feeling that what I did could bring light into someone's darkest moment. For years, that belief kept me going, even when the work pushed me to the edge of exhaustion. But somewhere along the way, I forgot to take care of myself. I worked endless shifts, moving from one patient to the next, filling out paperwork late into the night, and returning home to an apartment that was far too quiet. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself my patients needed me, my colleagues counted on me, and that was enough. Yet beneath the surface, there was an ache I couldn't ignore. At 38 years old, divorced, and with no children, I often whispered the lie to myself that I was fine. But the truth was, I had become invisible not just to the world around me, but even to myself. I buried my loneliness beneath my scrubs, convincing myself duty was more important than desire. My coworkers saw me as dependable, the one who never complained, the one who always picked up the slack. But when I went home, I felt like a shadow. There were nights I'd stand in front of the mirror and struggle to recognize the woman staring back. She looked tired, drained, like someone who had given too much without leaving anything for herself. I used to laugh easily, dream openly. But over the years, those parts of me had faded into silence. Then one ordinary morning turned into the beginning of something I never expected. His name was Daniel Hayes. He was 32, younger than me by 6 years. And he arrived in my ward after a car accident that left him with a fractured leg and a long road of recovery. At first glance, he was just another patient, another file in the stack, another name on the chart. That was how I thought of everyone at first. It was safer that way. Keep the distance. Stay professional. Don't let yourself blur the line. The first time I saw him, he was sitting up in his hospital bed, pale from the pain but still managing a crooked half smile as if to say, "I'll be fine." He had an air of resilience about him, the kind of quiet strength you notice even before words are exchanged. I walked in, clipboard in hand, wearing my professional mask of calm. I asked the same question I asked all my patients. "How's the pain today, Daniel?" He looked up at me, his blue eyes locking with mine in a way that startled me. It wasn't just a glance. It was as if he saw me. Really saw me, not just the nurse standing in his room. His lips curved slightly and he said, "Better now that you're here." I laughed it off, the way I always did when patients tried to lighten the mood with small jokes. I told myself it meant nothing, just another attempt to stay positive through the pain. But that look, that tone, it stayed with me long after I left his room. It had been years since anyone looked at me like that. Years since I felt that kind of warmth aimed in my direction. Day after day, I checked in on him. Our conversations started small. His favorite sports teams, books he liked, the way he missed driving his car. He joked about hospital food, and I teased him about being stubborn during his therapy sessions. But slowly, the conversation shifted. He asked me about my life, and not in the casual, polite way people sometimes do. He asked with real curiosity, as though he wanted to know who I truly was beneath the uniform. One afternoon, when I mentioned in passing that I had been divorced for 5 years, I braced myself for the usual look people gave: meepty, judgment, or that uncomfortable silence. But Daniel didn't do that. Instead, he looked at me thoughtfully and asked, "Do you ever think about starting over?" The question caught me off guard. Start over. At my age, with the scars I carried, I wanted to say no. But instead, I found myself whispering sometimes. The word hung in the air, heavier than I meant it to be. And from that moment, something began to shift inside me. Over the weeks of his recovery, I noticed myself changing. I looked forward to my shifts, not just because of my duty, but because I knew I'd see him. I caught myself lingering a little longer in his room, laughing at his jokes. letting the conversation wander further than it should have. I started to pay more attention to my appearance before work fixing my hair. Wearing the small touches of makeup I had long abandoned. It was subtle, but it was undeniable. Nurses aren't supposed to get attached. That's the rule we live by. But rules don't stop the heart from stirring when it's been asleep too long. One evening, near the end of my shift, I came in to adjust his pillows. As I leaned closer, his hand brushed against mine. Instead of pulling back immediately, he held on for just a moment longer. His voice was quiet, almost uncertain, when he said, "Emily, do you know how amazing you are?" For a moment, every instinct screamed at me to step away, to remind him of boundaries, to protect myself from something that could never be allowed. But his words melted something inside me I hadn't realized had frozen solid. For years, I had been invisible, unloved, undesired. And here was this man, broken in body, but strong in spirit, reminding me that I was still someone worth noticing. That night, when I went home and stood in front of the mirror, I didn't just see a tired nurse. I saw Emily Carter, the woman beneath the scrubs, a woman who still longed to feel alive. The days turned into weeks, and Daniel's recovery progressed. With therapy and determination, he moved from bed to crutches. Each step forward for him felt like a countdown for me. His discharge day drew closer, and with it came a mix of emotions I couldn't untangle. Relief, because he was healing. Heartbreak, because it meant he would soon leave. And with him would go the spark that had reminded me of who I was on his last day. I handed him his discharge papers, my hands steady even though my heart raced. He looked at me, his eyes unwavering, and said, "I don't want this to be goodbye." I hesitated. Every rule I'd ever lived by told me to end it there, to smile politely and let him walk out of the hospital and out of my life. But there was another voice inside, me, the voice that had been silenced for far too long that whispered, maybe, just maybe, it didn't have to end here. That moment became the beginning of a story I never expected. A story that taught me sometimes love finds us when we've stopped searching. That even in the most unexpected places, when we least believe it's possible, life has a way of reminding us we are still worthy of love, of happiness, of being seen. And that is how Daniel Hayes reminded me of myself.